Leeds United's annual accounts are now out, and they cover the 23-24 season, but a lot of it seems just like headline figures, a spreadsheet that is quite hard to understand until someone explains it. I think the same, because I'm not very good at explaining it or understanding it, but I've done my best to take a deep dive into the financial accounts for the 23-24 season. I'm going to explain some of the key lessons that we've learned to you and what that might ultimately mean for next season, depending on what happens to us. Basically, so we can prepare for the worst and hope for the best, because this teaches us some pretty big lessons about this next season, the season we're currently in, all sorts. So, to start off, we need to talk through the headline figures, and to be fair, it's not looking pretty in a lot of cases. So, first of all, the broadcast revenue is down fairly significantly. It's gone down by £58 million because you've lost all of the Premier League TV revenue. 45% of it just vanishes and it goes into the abyss, and you don't get the sort of like reward prize money side of it because you've not been competing. And it's fallen to £53.6 million when it was around 111. This leaves a big old hole in the finances, but on the bright side, you got other bits of revenue to make up for it. You got your commercial revenue and your matchday revenue, and to be fair, the matchday revenue did go up to a new record, but the commercial revenue fell by £5 million to £43.3 million. So far, we're 63 million quid down on where we would expect to be had we stayed in the Premier League, kept the same commercial income, all that kind of stuff. On the bright side, we did a little bit of improving in other areas of our finances. So whilst the amount of money we were making was shrinking fairly significantly, our costs did also fall by £52 million to 170 million quid. That's still a big sum of money. And considering that our revenue was 127 million, it's not great. And we need to consider that there's various other costs and issues and non-recurring incomes and all that kind of stuff that play into it, which means that our total losses sit at £60.8 million last year. Just a quick note on this, by the way. For anyone that says the 49ers are in this to sort of skin the club and skim all the profits off the top, here's your profits. Hope they enjoy them. But yeah, that's not what's happening here. And got to remember, this covers the 23-24 season. 24-25 will be a whole different story that we will get to talk about this time next year. In addition to that, the first season that we came down from the Premier League, we earned 69 million quid in player sales, spending 38 million on incomings. So the likes of Ethan Ampadu, loan fees to the likes of Joe Rodon, money on Gruev, money on Peru, all that kind of stuff. So we ended up earning a bit of a transfer profit of £30.9 million, which is fairly good business, I'd say. Well, like, we've built a reasonably strong squad out of that. And another further little fact is the average wages fell, which I did sort of see coming, but not by this much. They fell from 73.9k a week to 42.6k a week. So that whole, if you don't want a wage cut, you just piss off on loan, seemingly worked really, really well for us. We ended up making the wages to income percentage 66%. So only 66% of what we earn is going on wages. This varies from the promotion season under Bielsa, where that sat at 144%, which was not super healthy. Admittedly, we didn't have as high revenue at that point, but in terms of the wages that we were spending, big. Very, very big. So that wage coming down, admittedly, it's still a little bit bigger per person than it was at that point, but they'll continue to tumble. And I think we'll be looking a little bit healthier this time next year. It's important to note there's a few things that this does not include. And a thing that I've just realised I forgot to include was a little discussion about the channel sponsor, which is Match Bingo. If you're watching a football match and you fancy having a little bit of a different format of fun, you can get a Match Bingo card for, I think, a £5. I don't know off the top of my head. But various events that happen in a game will fill out your bingo card. You can get cash prizes for a line, 2 lines, full house, all that kind of stuff. Remember, be gamble aware, only play if you're over the age of 18, and if you feel like you are comfortable enough losing that money, you don't want to find yourself in any significant trouble. But yeah, you can scan my QR code to download Match Bingo, and that would help the channel, would help the charity match, all sorts of stuff. Anyway, back to the accounts. I'm sorry, I genuinely dropped that one in because I completely lost track and I realised I should have talked about this. But what this doesn't include, in terms of various like fees and incomings and outgoings and that kind of stuff, is that it does likely include the sale of Archie, but it does not include other key players. So there'll be a lot of players that went out last summer that everyone is pointing to and going, we made 100 and whatever million pounds last summer. That's there. That's in the accounts that will come out next season, but this season's accounts. It takes the run from June to April, I think, for the accounts to come around. They're not included in this one, which is why the transfer revenue is down at 69 million quid rather than being in the high hundreds. So we need to keep that one in mind when we're going forwards. So for next year, we've done a significant chunk of the financial work. And in addition to that, this is also missing the Red Bull deal. So next season will look, in terms of revenue, not too awful, at least in terms of like transfer revenue, commercial revenue. Broadcast revenue will be down. No idea about matchday revenue. I think it'd be roughly the same sort of level at the very least. But yeah, that's what isn't included in this. But there's still some pretty big lessons that we can learn from all of this, primarily around next season. First of all, I'd like to note that promotion basically solves all the problems that we're talking about here. So if you're looking at the way that things could just shoot up in terms of money, the revenues could potentially crack something like £200 million next season, up from £127 million that we earned this season. It's a £73 million gap. This is assuming that the commercial revenue goes up again because Premier League, you can sell more sponsorships, you can sell more boxes, all that kind of stuff. And you've got to consider the Red Bull deal, which is going to be very, very significant. Broadcast revenue goes back up to the lowest it can be is, I think, in the £110 million sort of range. We were in the 111, 115 sort of level when we were just doing Premier League survival. When we did quite well in the Premier League, it was 132.8. So you never know where that's going to end up, but that's a nice little 20-odd million pound range that we can fall into that no matter what is a colossal increase. And I don't know what it'll mean for matchday revenue. Matchday revenue probably goes up, but that's because ticket prices have gone up. So we don't enjoy it, but it keeps the club going, I guess. I don't want that to be the case in any way, shape, or form. Ideally, we go up and we don't have to raise the ticket prices, but that's not the world we live in. But if we don't go up, and this is the bit that we need to be considerate of and be aware of, we're likely still looking at some big sales. Because, yeah, sure, did a fantastic job of selling a lot of players last summer for a lot of money, but we don't know what that looks like on the accounts. And the amount we're allowed to lose, according to PSR, is vastly smaller next season. So, to account for that, in the coming summer, if we don't get promoted, we will probably have to sell some big players. And the wage budget will need to go down even further to probably those sort of Bielsa promotion year numbers, so the average wage being in the 20 to 30k a week rather than the 40k a week sort of level. And in addition to that, it's interesting to note that we owe a significant level of transfer fees to other clubs. 142 million quid. It's just not little. To be fair, other clubs owe us 69 million pounds, which is fine. That's okay. That's not too bad. That includes, I think, chunks of Calvin and Rafinha because those sums seem to come from that rough sort of period of time. But I don't have the detailed accounts, so I'm not going to 100% commit to that. I don't know. But that's a problem that is hard to solve if you're in the Championship. So promotion would be good. If promotion doesn't happen, we got a lot to be spooked about. I hope that's not the world that we're living in, and I do still feel like we can get promoted, but we got to be optimistic. Because if the bad thing happens, we won't have much to be optimistic about next season, I don't think. Anyway, that was the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, pop a like on it and subscribe if you're not yet. That's always much appreciated. I'll try and bring like new and upcoming stories and content and all that kind of stuff. Be a channel member if you fancy. All the channel's revenue is going towards Prostate Cancer UK until I do the charity match on the 20th of July. And stick around on the channel because I'm doing a stream at 5:50 p.m. with a couple of people talking some very specific things about the charity match. So, hope you enjoyed. I will see you later. And I might also do another stream if we find out more details about the accounts, but I'm not 100% on that. We'll work it out. See you later.